Good evening. This is Overtime. State Representative Nicole Collier, who is a state representative of the state of Texas. She represents the Fort Worth district. It has been locked into the state capitol. Guards have been posted at the doors and windows, and she has been told that she is not permitted to leave. We have some pictures. Let's see what we got. Let me... this is, you can see her, she's one desk down. The rest of the members of Congress have been allowed to leave. She is trapped there. She is being held by the master-at-arms or the sergeant-at-arms. We'll get into the little I can tell you about the legality of that in a minute. Unfortunately, it is more legal than one might think. We'll get into all of that. It started when, as all of you know, a number of Democrats, I think it was 51, fled the state in order to break quorum to keep the state from being able to vote on the deliberate gerrymandering as per Trump's request to give him an additional 5 representatives in the House of Representatives, U.S. House of Representatives, thereby making it harder for the Dems to flip the House in the midterms. Now, there's been a lot of cry by Republicans that breaking quorum is a no-no and you should not use this tactic, that this is a unsound tactic. It's unfair, have the up or down vote, and if you lose the vote, you lose the vote, but bailing and making it impossible to do business is unethical. It's damaging them because they can't do any of the flood legislation that they wanted to do, so on and so forth. To them, I would say 2 things. First, you are correct. I'm not a big fan of breaking quorum, and I think that is, doing so deliberately is inherently undemocratic. Having said that, the Republicans are the ones who did it when there was a vote scheduled on the release of the Epstein files, and Speaker Johnson gave everyone vacation 2 days early so that nobody was present for the vote. That is the exact same thing. So, people in glass houses. I'm not a fan of the tactic, but Republicans cannot decry the tactic when they've been doing it themselves and on extraordinarily large issues and at the national level, and everybody seemed to approve then, so I don't know what's changed. Why did they come back? The reason they came back was because each session, if I recall, last 30 days, don't quote me on that, I believe each session lasts 30 days, they were out to kill the previous session. Now, the first order of business of the next session is going to be to hold a vote on the gerrymandering. But they need to gavel the session in. If the session isn't gavelled in, they can't have the vote, which is what Democrats are trying to do, is to block the vote. But nothing in the state legislature can get done at all. Everything comes to a grinding halt. It's not just that they don't pass new legislation, nothing gets through. So the Democrats returned to gavel in the next session and promptly go on. Governor Greg Abbott was aware that they would do this. So the next session, 30 days in length, has been gavelled in. A vote on the redistricting has been scheduled on Wednesday. The governor wants to make sure that every Democrat is there for the vote. So once it was gavelled in, he made them all sign a pledge that they would return and that they would accept police custody, essentially a police escort wherever they went, 24/7 for the duration of the time until the vote could be held. Let's see, I wanted to read that one aloud. So let me see. So Representative Blank is granted permission to leave the hall of the House on this day in the custody of the designated officer of the Department of Public Safety appointed under Rule 5, Section 8 of House Rules and Procedures on the condition that the representative will return to the House on 10 a.m. on Wednesday, August 20th. So Every single Democrat who left had to sign that. That was a pledge to return, and they have a guard, a police escort, everywhere they go. So, is that legal? Well, there has been a lot of questions. First of all, the congressman was approached and asked if she was being held hostage and or if that's what she had been telling people. She said, no, that is not what she has been telling people. People are calling this a hostage situation. It is not a hostage situation. She also has not been kidnapped. Those are very specific terms, meeting very specific criteria. Nobody went into her house, grabbed her, and pulled her in here. She walked in here of her own free will. You may argue that she has been illegally detained or wrongfully imprisoned. Whether or not you believe that, we'll get into the hows or whys, but that is the situation. Is at present, she is being detained either legally or illegally and or imprisoned, really, in the state house because she is refusing to sign that document, and so they have said they are not letting her leave. So ostensibly she is trapped there until Wednesday at a minimum. Now, if the other Democrats manage to flee and on Wednesday the vote does not happen, that means she could be stuck there for 30 days. And as long as the Democrats are out, they may detain her at that facility. Now, it is, I believe, Texas, I want to argue, okay, Texas Constitution, Article 3, Section 14, privilege from arrest during legislative session. Senators and representatives shall, in cases of treason, felony, or breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during the session of legislature and go in and return from the same. That sounds awfully weird until you realize that's what the president has. That's what our congressmen have. What is impeachment? People think impeachment is to remove from office. That is one of the possibilities of impeachment. But what impeachment is to pierce the shield that prohibits the blocking of somebody from going into their office or firing them willy-nilly, yada, yada, yada. So senators, congressmen, and senators, representatives, and the president and the judges have special rules saying you cannot arrest them on the way to work. The reason for this is reasonably obvious, and I think this is going to be tested with Trump now in control of D.C. Trump, no police officer can arrest a congressman on his way to a vote. This had to be, this power, this immunity against arrest for anything, including treason, felony, breach of the peace, whatever. This immunity had to be granted because back in the good old days in England, before the U.S. Even was a country, they would arrest the members of parliament who were going to vote, who were voting in a way that they didn't like. And really, the vote turned out based more on who was successfully able to arrest more of the opposition party than getting their own people arrested. So in order to avoid that obvious tactic, they've been given, most states grant immunity to their legislators from arrest during the legislative sessions, and that immunity can be pierced by a process called impeachment. So now that we know what that is why that is there. So is she under arrest? Can she be arrested? No, she cannot be arrested. However, every one of these bodies has a sergeant at arms. The sergeant at arms in the United States has detained congressmen and senators, U.S. congressmen and senators, at the behest of the head of that particular body, either the Speaker of the House or the Majority Leader. They have that power. That power, because it is an officer of the legislative body, not a civil officer, but one of the legislative body who has power and authority only over that body. He has authority over congressmen and senators at a minimum while they're in the building. While they're out of the building, that's another question. Can they go out and bring people back in? Nobody's tested that except Abbot in the most recent, he's been having the sergeant at arms go bring these people back in. In the U.S. Constitution, not in the, I don't believe it's the Constitution. Let me see if I can find the U.S. version. I had that up a second ago. For the U.S., the sergeant at arms can be directed to arrest or detain members who are absent without leave when a quorum is needed to conduct business. This authority is primarily used to ensure a sufficient number of members are present to vote on legislative matters. So that is for the U.S. I assume that in the state of Texas they have a similar exception. Ergo, this is legal. Should it be? Probably not. Actually, there is one exception, which is there's no vote right now. So how long was any language like this? And I haven't seen the language for the state of Texas, but this is whether or not this is legal. Actually, I should say it's closer to legal than most people think. Whether or not this ends up being legal comes down to how much the sergeant at arms is really empowered to do and for how long. There isn't a vote. Everybody has gone home. He is detaining someone because he is concerned that they're not going to come back. And while ostensibly he's got that ability in order to make sure there's a quorum, that's when the vote is happening then and there. The vote's already scheduled. It ain't today. So she has said she is going to stay there. She is not going to sign the promise to return, nor is she going to accept a police escort 24/7 to ensure she does not leave the state. That probably is not legal. That does appear to violate Article 3, Section 14 of the Texas Constitution, because none of the civil police officers can actually arrest a congressman under the same set of circumstances that it would empower the sergeant at arms to do the same. So either she's in the jurisdiction, and all congressmen are in the jurisdiction of the civil authorities, meaning the police can follow them and arrest them if they don't behave in whatever fashion, or the sergeant at arms can when there's a vote to maintain the quorum, which right now doesn't appear to be the situation. Could you interpret it, well, it's going to be on Wednesday? Well, that's how Abbott's interpreting it, but he's using civilian police to detain them in this state, and that would appear to be illegal. So detaining her in the building may actually be legal. Following the rest around 24/7 and saying they can't leave the state once they've left the building, which is the sole recognized jurisdiction of the sergeant at arms. So she is there. There is a number of microphones and press has been allowed in, at least some press, but she was not planning on staying there. This wasn't announced to anyone, so she doesn't have food. She presumably can get water and basic necessities, but she doesn't have a bed, a place to. This is the state house. She was not planning on staying here overnight. She is being detained until she either signs the, quote, permission slip to leave, or until the vote is held, which again, if the Democrats slip their tails, which it begs the question, if they go for the border, what exactly are these police officers empowered to do? There's always been a question as to just how much power even a sergeant at arms has, let alone civilian authorities chasing state legislators. We've discussed before why this is so important. It is actually possible. There is a remote possibility. Remote. But I'd like to explain it for a second. There is a remote possibility that we are going to have a Democratic president in 2 years. Wow! How does that happen? That happens by Congress getting flipped to the Democratic side. So if the House in particular, and the House is the most important part, because if the House flips, and flips by enough, they can impeach both Trump and Vance. If Trump and Vance are impeached, then the Speaker of the House, who in this case would have to be a Democrat, gets elevated to President of the United States. That's quite a powerful thing, and it is a long shot, but it is possible. And it occurs to me when I see how desperately Trump wants to make sure that the House does not flip, that he is well aware that his agenda probably stops in its tracks once control of the House is returned to Democrats. Keep in mind, at that point, they will probably go after him for impoundment of funds, for violating a number of laws, including the law specifically barring him from impounding funds. Start restoring all of the things that he's cut, the things that DOJ has cut, and arguing all of that in the courts. We still have the same Supreme Court, but it's going to keep him from going forward on any new legislation as well. So, at a minimum, if he loses the House, most of his agenda suffers a severe blow, and possibly he gets expelled from the presidency. Again, long shot. I'm not suggesting this because I want everyone to get all excited. I'm suggesting this because these are actually the stakes that we're talking about. This is why people are getting so upset. This is why Governor Newsom has said if they redraw and add 5 Republicans, he will redraw and add 5 Democrats. Now, that is iffy because he does not have control of the maps himself, and the legislature does not have control. The legislature used to have control, but it got passed to a bipartisan committee that redraws the maps every 10 years and cannot redraw the maps any other time. So what he is proposing is a special ballot initiative that would adopt a new map until the next census and the next time when the maps would be redrawn. This map would only be adopted if Texas gerrymanders and gains 5 Republicans, and would be exclusively gerrymandered to offset that by adding 5 Democrats. Right now, that proposal is polling at 53%, which is enough to pass. It needs to pass only by a majority, but that is right now, and the special election would be held in November. There's going to be massive campaigning on both sides, and it has to pass. Right now, it's at 53% to pass, but 2/3 of people asked reported saying that they did not like the idea of anyone but the independent committee that has been specifically made for making these maps to make the map. Enough of those people apparently would be willing to vote for this special session. The bill is, I think, called Fighting Inequality, and they're going to present it as nicely as they can and try to get the people to vote for it. That's it. But just because he says they're going to do it doesn't mean it's going to get done. So that's where we stand on Texas. That's where we stand on California. It's going to be an interesting couple of days. I think I'm curious what would happen if this were happening at the state level. Sorry, not the state level, at the federal level. Instead, it's happening in reverse because the Republicans are in power, but they let everyone go home 2 days early, explicitly to deny a quorum to vote on the release of the Epstein files. This is the same party that says they want everyone to see the files. They've done the exact same thing. In Texas, it is actually illegal to redraw the maps in a way that is racist. And the word racist is explicitly in the language of the legislation. It is illegal to draw racist districts. And the representative here has said that's why she's fighting this. She cannot, in good conscience, vote for or against a measure that cannot be brought legally. So obviously she would vote against it if she had to vote, but she thinks that blocking it from even coming to the floor is the correct thing to do because it's illegal legislation, and by Texas law it is. So again, to those who would say, well, they're playing around with quorum and that's not a fair thing to do, let's do the Democratic thing and have an up or down vote. How about we do the Democratic thing and follow the laws first? That they're clearly gerrymandering. And by the way, you can't sit there and gerrymander a state that almost actually didn't go for Trump. I mean, the state was close enough to blue that it was in play. And it's going to get one Democrat, and all the rest are going to be Republican. And that's democracy. That's making sure that everybody's voice is heard. Let's stop playing word games and stop pretending that this is about anything other than a cynical power grab to ensure that as the margin for Trump in the House of Representatives is as large as possible, because if he loses it, most of his agenda goes out the window, and if he loses it by enough, he and Vance could both be impeached. That's what this is about, and anyone pretending otherwise is not being an adult about the matter. I'm going to quickly check the live chat and see if I've missed anything. I want a day that Blonde Bombshell, or remember for 11 months, I want a day that isn't full of red cray. Yeah, red 𝐒𝐴𝐿𝐿. That's a lot of 𝐒𝐴𝐿𝐿 going on. So I want to also see if there are any pictures. Now there's a great, Trump has been passing out pictures of what the redistricting would look like, and he's been going crazy on Truth Social. He's been applauding the work of Greg Abbott, obviously, and we still have to wait and see what happens now that all 51 of the Democratic representatives, which, by the way, because the fact that there's 51 Democratic representatives should tell you something. That's not the majority. They're in the minority, but that's not a trivial number either. And they're planning on taking away essentially the districts of all of them but one. All but one. They have to have one because they have to gerrymander it in such a way that at least one district is going to end up having a Democratic majority. They can't avoid that. So, one. Oy vey. All right, so I think I was checking on. I wanted to see, there was a nice, let's see. All right, let me check out what we've been seeing on social media here. There's nothing in the rules about putting a police officer on a political official. That is true, and we've talked about this. The sergeant at arms is empowered to, and the sergeant at arms, to the best of my knowledge, cannot deputize other people into service for his job. I could be wrong, but she said convicted felons have more freedom than quorum breaking them. That's actually true. That's fair. Don't have a plan. I just know after passing, we're not allowed to take photos. The sergeant at arms said they were closing the gallery as per the order, so she is locked in. So the DPS is just basically following the representatives around wherever they go. Again, I'm a little curious to know what would happen if one of them went to the state line. The police cannot detain. Oh, that's the same one. Okay. The police cannot detain an elected official in that sense, especially one that hasn't broken the law. So it's an interesting situation. I would like very much to tell you that this is kidnapping and that we should all be outraged. I think it's very serious. I think we need to be outraged. We need to be outraged at the gerrymandering, and we need to be outraged that the only recourse is what's going on now to what is clearly, and the Supreme Court was never supposed to allow this to happen. Texas, Alabama, a number of other states specifically had to send their redistricting maps to the Supreme Court because they were so racist every time they made them that they couldn't be trusted to make them anymore. And that is going up before the Supreme Court in October. That's the remaining elements of Title II, and my suspicion is they will strike that down and say any state can district any way it wants to. Okay, I'm fine with that, but if we do that, we can't call ourselves a democracy anymore because your vote doesn't matter. The states' votes matter. So it's either I don't know, plutocracy or perhaps it's probably just a dictatorship at that point. And if you want to live in that, that's fine. But let's at least call it that. If they can redistrict in such a way that they can just take out any Democrats, Republicans that they don't like, if the senators and congressmen get to choose who votes for them, not the voters choosing who represents them, it's not a free country anymore. So why are we even clowning around about that? All right, so I think I got that up. So we will see what happens on Wednesday. The vote is held, I think, 10 a.m. There is also several votes on emergency funding for flood relief. As you recall, last month, at the beginning of this month, they were hit with some serious flooding. A number of people died, and they're trying to update their systems. They are trying to get relief, and one of the things the Democrats have pointed out is they are willing to stay for that vote, but that vote needs to be put first, and then they're going to leave. And the Governor Greg Abbott is refusing to have that vote go first. He has instructed the Speaker of the House to keep that vote second. So whenever people say, hey, Dems, you're blocking up relief for flood victims, keep in mind that's up to the Speaker of the House. That's up to Greg Abbott, who has deliberately used that as a ploy to add pressure to them to come back. He has weaponized it by making it second instead of saying, hey, here's something we both agree on. Let's at least vote on that, get that passed, and then deal with this quorum issue. He's been offered that. That has been denied. So no business except for whatever the basic runnings now that they have gavelled in another special session. I think it's a special session, 30 days. We will find out on Wednesday what happens. In the meantime, good on her for drawing significant attention to this matter. We'll see whether the Democrats actually make a run for it. My suspicion is they're going to. My hope is they're going to. I think it's a worthy cause. But notwithstanding, until then, she is a prisoner in the State House, and it doesn't look like there's much she can do about it, and the legality of it's going to probably come down to a couple of words in the framing of the rules of the House. As to how long and under what circumstances the sergeant-at-arms really can detain someone, because they're not voting. So we'll see. Anyways, that's what's going on. It's a pretty amazing thing. Trump is aware of it and already truthing left and right over it. We're not going to get into that, but look forward to seeing you all tomorrow, Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern for In Time with a 𝐒𝐮andering person, and we will see you then, barring any other interesting updates. Have a good night, all.